Hey, Alex here. I know, it's been a while. Last time I was here, I did say we'd be taking a break. Cooking up something new, I said. Well, it's here at last. Interstates is going on indefinite hiatus at this point. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm excited to share with you my new project, Nice Work. Nice Work is a team effort. It's hosted by me, Alex Chambers, with Kate Young. She was the host of WFIU's Earth Eats, and Tyler Lake, who was a producer for WTIU's Journey, Indiana. With Interstates, I wanted to focus on stories of South Central Indiana. We're doing the same thing with Nice Work, but more so. We're bringing you more short conversations about what's coming up in our listening area, stories about interesting artists and organizations, and I'm hoping to get some games in there too. We'll see. Our first episode came out just over a week ago. The main interview is with an artist who built herself a sort of a puppet costume and wears it in empty pools, among other places. It's crazy and weird, and also has really interesting insights about how you get started doing creative work. I wanted to share it with you here. While you listen, right now, go ahead and find Nice Work in your podcast app and hit subscribe. You won't regret it. All right, here's the show. Enjoy.
If the reason I'm using puppets is to hide behind these ideas, what if you become the puppet, Johanna? What if you take a bit more risk?
What if you take more risk? That's what being creative is about. You don't know how it's going to turn out. For a lot of people, that means it's hard to even get started.
This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake, and we're just getting started.
I'm Kate Young, by the way. Nice Work is a new show about art and culture in Southern Indiana.
And I'm Alex Chambers. For this inaugural episode, I talked with artist Johanna Winters about the puppet costume she wears. I wanted to know where ideas come from. How do you get started?
Wait, she wears the puppet costume? She's in it?
Yeah, she's in it.
That sounds oddly freeing. We'll also hear from Bloomington's premier pop-up cinema.
We'll tell you about the Bloomington Symphony's collaboration with My Sister's Closet.
And we'll visit a Mexican ice cream shop.
That's all coming up on Nice Work after the break.
This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers. In honor of our first episode, I decided to ask an artist about what it takes to get started. What happens when you've got a blank page or an empty stage in front of you and you want to make something? I thought Johanna Winters could help me answer that. She's a visual artist and puppeteer and an assistant professor at the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design. We didn't start with emptiness. Actually, we kind of did. There was an empty pool. It was the Bryant Park pool, if you know Bloomington. But in that otherwise empty pool was this strange character she's created called the protagonist. The protagonist is half papier-mâché and half human body. So far, it's always been her own in there. She makes these short films about the protagonist that are somehow both uncanny and tender as they explore things like longing and embarrassment and sensuality in an aging body. We also talked about how she helps students explore materials and ideas about aging and vulnerability, and how that led her to put on a puppet costume. And the documentary about two real living humans, a mother and a daughter, that started her puppet trajectory. So, let's get to it. Johanna, first of all, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Can you actually describe her?
Yeah. She is kind of ambiguously gendered, but I refer to her as she because I embody her. It's, I'm performing as her. And I do think the content for me makes sense as I'm thinking about being in a woman's body. But she has no hair, for instance. The mask that is part of the costume is a larger than normal head shape with very vacant eye sockets. They just sort of look like dark portals into her head.
And we should say it goes over the head, just for a listener to know.
Yes.
It's not like a mask just on the front of the face.
Correct.
It's a large...
It's like a big potato with a hole at the bottom that you put over your head. So when one is wearing it, your periphery is really limited. Your vision is quite limited, which I think helps become this bumbling, a little bit pitiful, a little bit maybe beautiful, person, being. Then there's the mask, and then there's what I call the bodice, which is also papier-mâché. So everything's really rigid and not flexible. So it crinkles when you sit down or bend at your waist or rub against something. And the bodice is like a big lumpy swimsuit that also has signifiers of gender, like breasts. And there's, I think, a little some subtle butt cheeks. They've probably been squished by this point because she does a lot of like sitting and laying and sort of exercising.
And it's also sort of an egg shape in a way.
Yeah. It's kind of
that you
rotund.
It's rotund, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And that you step into
right.
and wear around your torso.
Right. You do.
Just to help people picture. And then what we see is the sort of the paper mache bodice, which is sort of stiff and rotund, and the kind of giant head, and then human legs and arms,
right,
moving and coming out of it.
Correct. Yeah. And I think I've sometimes wondered, like, does this look too much like a big baby? And I've gotten that question before, like, are you referencing child? But that's not my intention. And part of my hope is that because it's, a person who is my age, who is performing as the arms and legs, you can read like, oh, those are the hands of a early middle-aged woman. I just admitted it.
I also think the activities that we see her doing suggest adulthood.
Right, that's true.
Some of the other films are about awaiting romance and eroticism and preparing for that and so on.
Yeah.
So personally, I didn't read
Thank
babyhood into it.
Good,
for what that's worth.
Yeah, I think the way that sensuality is suggested or this character is curious about it, I think is something that adults would hopefully pick up on or relate to or have questions about.
So insofar as we're trying to think about how to get started, I want to start with this most recent video project, which of course is based on previous work and this character that already exists. So maybe we can get into that. But in terms of like making the decisions for this most recent one, where did some of the ideas come from?
I was looking for some kind of environment that could be like a staging for this character. I think that's how I've resolved constructing an image is I know who the work is about. It's about this protagonist. So I need a place for her to be exploring this longing and this sensuality and embarrassment and all of those kind of really harder to articulate feelings, but we all experience them in some form or another.
And are you always looking for a place?
No, I don't have a formula. I think I literally was. Well, I'm relatively new to Bloomington, and I have this running route that I go on in my neighborhood, and I pass the Bryan Park pool, and it is quite striking when it's empty and there's nobody there, and it's not being used as it's intended. And it's not like I've filmed on a stage before or on a set, but this felt like this recessed, I don't know, platform for me to just put her in there and see what happens. And I didn't come up with a shot list. That's not typically, I more have a feeling, and I have the costume and then some props, and I go with my camera, and I have been filming with friends who are more skilled in cinematography, and they're behind the camera. I'm in front of the camera. And we have loose plans, but then we just kind of play, and then one thing will lead to another, and like, oh, let's try that. What about that? Oh, whoa, what is that doing? Like I couldn't have known that the lane line. Do you know what the lane line is? Those like dividers that span the length of the pool, and when they're not in use, they're rolled up on this huge
it's a rope
spool.
with like
these
floating
plastic
things, basically.
Yep. And they're very, when you pull off of the spool of them, it's quite heavy to get the rotation to start, and then they make this beautiful like clinking, screeching noise. I don't know. You got to watch the film to see it. But I couldn't have known that was going to be there. And another thing that was unexpected, because of the flatness of that pool surface in terms of like palette and literal, not quite very textured, and the time of day, the shadows that were cast from the character were really striking, and they almost read as like a second being in the space. And the shapes that were being made as the sun passed over just got weirder and more distorted. And so I didn't know that was happening until I looked back at the footage. So that was a nice surprise. And so it's just being open to that kind of discovery. You can't plan for everything.
No, you can't. Exactly. I think that's a really key thing to keep in mind. But you did go in with like a feeling. Can you describe the feeling?
Well, I mean, the ideas that I've been kind of circling around the last, I'd say 5 years, are longing, embarrassment, disappointment, maybe a little bit of shame, but also pleasure and curiosity and discovery and sensuality in a body. And what would that look like in a way that evokes a feeling for me as I'm performing, but also for anyone who's watching these images in film or in video.
So it's the continuation of exploring this set of feelings. And it was more like maybe what will this space evoke?
Yeah.
And then how can we just go into this space and explore with these feelings in mind and this kind of character in this place?
Yeah. And maybe this sounds not a cop-out, but, I want to convey that I know what I'm doing, but so much of it is trusting your process. This sounds like a cliche. Trusting your process. But you don't. It's happened so often, and maybe this is why I love working in film, is you can't really see it fully until you are watching back at the footage or in the editing process. And then especially for me, as someone who, I'm not trained in film, and I think that allows me to kind of break a bunch of rules and maybe do things not so efficiently, but not worry about doing it, quote unquote, the right way. When I'm reviewing the footage, the work kind of starts to reveal itself to me. I don't have an exact idea of what I want the final product to be. It's like sculpting or drawing. You start out with this impulse and then it reveals itself and you're responding to your decisions and making discoveries that you didn't know were even there, like the shadow shapes. And that, I don't know, for me, that's where I feel the most like myself. Like, I am an artist and I'm trusting those instincts, and that feels the most alive.
Right. It's a discovery process. You're like sort of staying in the unknowing for longer.
Yes. And that I think is a really important component of making something and putting it out into the world, is being comfortable in the not knowing.
Right.
Which is hard to do and also hard to teach students and help students practice that not knowing.
Do you find that students want to kind of know it all before they get started?
I think especially with students that I work with who are coming into the studio art program in their first year, or maybe they're in their second year as a sophomore, or they've never taken an art class before. So I think they want to know how to do it right. And that breaks my heart a little bit, because I want them to make really beautiful, surprising mistakes that we can talk about why they aren't actually mistakes. Like, what does it look like to make a bad drawing? What does that mean to each individual person? Which is actually a prompt I ask them, which is maybe a little too broad. There's ways to build them up to be able to have the tools to know what to do with that prompt. But I love that question. I don't know how to answer it, specifically. It would be different maybe depending on the week, how I'm the mood.
That makes sense. And what surprises have come out of that in working with students?
For a number of students who've maybe never even held a piece of charcoal to paper before, these are students who haven't studied art in high school, I think the materiality of the objects they're working with is a fun discovery for them, and they're like kind of delighted by how dirty their hands are. I mean, the students that I work with have really beautiful nails. Like, all of their nails are extremely well manicured, and it is kind of cool to see them embrace the charcoal under their fingernails and in their cuticles. That's maybe a weird specific example, but we talk a lot about paying attention in a different way. Like, there's a way that we pay attention on our phone. Like, we all know what that kind of attention looks like and feels like. But how might you look at, for example, an apple for 30 minutes and notice all of its idiosyncrasies, and not, it's not just a circle with a stick on the top, but how might your hand translate those idiosyncrasies with a pencil to a piece of paper? And maybe it is a practice of, even your walk from where you park your car to the building you're heading to, try to notice one thing on the walk that you normally would have overlooked. Perhaps because you were, looking at your phone or worrying about what you're going to do as soon as you get to wherever you're headed. That's something I try to do, and most days I kind of forget. But it is another prompt that I share with students in terms of paying attention to ways that drawing might show up in our lived environment, like unintentional marks or marks that nature makes or marks that maintenance crews make on the lawns with their lawnmowers. For me, it's a practice of trying to notice things more intentionally.
And what that makes me think about, because I'm also thinking about your work, the work that you've been doing for the past few years, is that it's also seems like it's about noticing feelings that maybe seem unimportant. Sort of like those marks that like the lawnmower made or whatever, like unintentional marks, but also feelings that maybe are overlooked, don't seem important. And that's part of what you're exploring through the protagonist.
I like that idea.
Did you say that?
Yeah. The thing that came to mind was that I'm not looking for a solution or an answer. Like I kind of hope to keep being surprised. I mean, at some point I probably will feel like, okay, I've really thought this through as far as I can. But maybe not. Like that would be kind of great if it just kept shifting and expanding, it being films about this puppet lady.
Tell me a little bit more about her beginning.
Yeah. Prior to her construction, I was making marionettes, more doll-sized objects and performing with those. So let's see, there was a specific summer where I was maybe tired of or felt like it was a bit gimmicky to be performing with marionettes, and I wanted something more at stake. Like why, if the reason I'm using puppets is to hide behind these ideas, because as the puppeteer you kind of disappear. What if you become the puppet, Johanna? Like what if you take a bit more risk?
What was that like wearing the costume at the beginning?
It was really thrilling.
Really?
Yeah, it was hard to move. It was really like kind of stiff and rigid, and also it felt a little sexy, because it's exposing your legs and arms, and it's weird looking. Like it's kind of horrifying to some folks. Like I've gotten that feedback.
There's certainly an uncanniness to it.
Yeah, but when I asked someone to just film her on their phone or something, and I looked at that footage, and I can't speak to the exact moment of like, and then I fell in love, but I was like, oh, there's something here. Like I'm onto something that I want to stick with, and that was around the same time that I was interested in more film or like screen-based work instead of live performance, and so it kind of all naturally progressed in that direction.
I feel like yesterday when we were talking a little bit before recording today, you said that there was a relationship to vulnerability too.
Yes. I forgot about that.
It seems like it would be really vulnerable because you or whoever's wearing it, their legs are completely bare all the way up to the waist.
Yeah.
And the costume or piece itself is also kind of nude, even though there's a sense of that at least.
Right.
A feeling of that. And so it feels like it would be vulnerable.
Yeah. I suspect that I'm driven by vulnerability. Like if it feels vulnerable, then it must be meaningful or a worthwhile pursuit. And that has felt true, I think, since I started working with puppets and performing with them. Because prior to that, I was mostly making works on paper. Like I was studying printmaking. And so that didn't feel exciting in a way. Like making beautiful images is exciting. But I think for me, I wanted to, and I should probably like talk to a therapist about this, but why did you want to pursue vulnerability in this way? Because it is uncomfortable. Like this discomfort, both being in the costume, performing in it, seeing other people watch me performing in it, all of that is uncomfortable, but I think I'm seduced by it a little bit. Question mark?
So why did you want to explore vulnerability in that way?
I'm going to have to circle back to that.
Okay.
Why is that important?
I mean, I think that my sense of it is that one of the things you've mentioned both in your writing about the work and a little bit in conversation is that part of it is, thinking about disappointment, but also about aging in a female or femme body and what that is about in society or what it feels like.
Right.
I doubt that's the only thing in relation to vulnerability.
Right. It's interesting that I just completely overlooked that factor, probably because it's not something I can put it on paper and like submit it as a statement, or it's like a statement on my website, but then to say it out loud is like, what? You don't want to air your dirty laundry.
Right.
But yeah, you are absolutely right that noticing how a body is changing and perhaps, well, there's a lot of, I think, societal metrics of when a body surpasses its attractiveness or its usefulness, perhaps.
Yeah.
And there's a grief in that and an anger. And I mean, I was thinking about this and starting to make this work in my early 30s when I remember, people saying like, well, you're still so young. What are you talking about? And I'm like, but it's on the horizon. I'm almost there. Or it was already, I think I was worrying about it in my 20s too. And I think that's true of, anyway, I'm getting off track.
No, this is great.
You could talk about, I don't know, there is just a grief to aging that obviously I find uncomfortable to discuss. And feeling like there's a social cachet attached to youthfulness that is disappearing as one ages. And that's not necessarily like, these are things I want to push against and I don't necessarily believe are true, but I think our culture has certainly told us they're true, especially if you are inhabiting certain kinds of bodies that where your age is valued or not valued more, I don't know.
Female bodies.
Yeah. Or
typically. Not always, but
yeah. But I don't want to, I mean, I only know the experience of being in a woman's body, so it could be true, but let's be honest, like men can age and still be considered sexy, and women are made invisible. That's what I hear anyway. That's what I've been told. It makes me very excited to dream about my 80-year-old self, what kind of work she'll be making. I hope I'm still making work when I'm in my 80s.
Yeah.
But I hope it's, weird.
So why does it make you excited to think about your 80-year-old self? Because
I can't still be making, I mean, maybe I could. I would hope that, I guess I want to still be surprising myself. That's really all I need to still feel like I'm discovering new things. And I know certainly I will have more limitations in terms of movement and energy. But that constraint of being in that version of my body will offer, things I don't even know about yet. Yeah, who knows if I'll be performing in a costume at that age.
Do you see yourself continuing with the protagonist for the foreseeable future?
I'm not ready yet to kill her off.
Kill her off.
Yeah, I think there will be more of her, but I'm also really interested in being behind the camera, and I don't know what necessarily the content would then be. I've mostly just been playing around with a new camera that I got and using like my hands as sort of the thing that's performing, like in the mirror, reflected in two mirrors, like where there's a doubling or a tripling of the fingers, and they have masking tape fingernails because I was making a masking tape puppet thing, and so there was all these little scraps, and then I put them on my fingers, and I'm like, oh, they're kind of like little figures. Anyway, so this is where me being behind the camera is leading so far.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of sketches of footage where I'm trying to figure out what my own eye is as someone composing the shots instead of performing in them.
But I think that also what you just described gets at the original question too. Because
where do ideas come from?
Where do ideas come from? Because there's this limitation. You had a camera, you didn't really know what to film. You have your
Yeah.
hands.
Mm-hmm.
You noticed that you were using this tape. You can use it as fingernails, and you noticed that it turned into figures.
Yeah.
Then you start to play with that.
And then you notice if you turn the camera over this way, it catches the reflection in the mirror and then another like fracturing of it. And that's where the doubling happened.
Right.
And then you're onto something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it is as small as that.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to that idea of being open to starting out not knowing what you're doing and having a really generous perception of possibility. Perception, I don't know what that even means. Being open to noticing things that you didn't like make a list of those things ahead of time.
Yes, but I think
Do you know what I'm
also, I think noticing those things, but I also think there's the ability to engage with some sort of material, whether it's a camera or like charcoal on paper
Yeah.
or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I think that we can notice stuff, and maybe that's enough for us, but if we're thinking about making something, you have to have some sort of material
That's true.
and a willingness to work with it, even if you
Right.
don't know how.
Right. I'm definitely drawn to what I call like low craft or accessible craft. Paper mache, literally masking tape is my lowbrow paper mache. When I don't have the time to have all the layers dry, I just use newsprint and masking tape, and it still has that textured and dry and kind of crusty surface, but it can appear to be well crafted in its execution, I think. So I got to the masking tape manicure fingers from making a pair of puppet legs and trying to film those, but they weren't really doing what I wanted them to do. But when my hand was in the frame moving the legs, that became interesting. And I've done that in other videos where there's like a human limb and a puppet limb kind of interacting. And I just used the dorm room that I was staying in because it was in a historic house with really interesting wallpaper and billowing curtains and this weird triangle sink in the corner. So that was like, oh, this is the stage. And then one thing leads to another.
For a minute, Johanna and I thought nothing would lead anywhere else. We had talked about everything. But then she mentioned that she'd brought a list of films that were also relevant to the topic at hand.
In terms of like where do ideas come from,
Right.
I do think it happens a lot in film. I will pull out a notebook and start taking notes as I'm watching a film. I mean, unless I'm in a theater, which I should do more often.
Sure.
But I think I really respond to how cinematographers and filmmakers tell stories or like make feeling happen visually.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to do too.
Right. And so you have a few films that have done that for you.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the origins of my puppet trajectory started with Grey Gardens, the Maisels brothers documentary. I think it's 1972. Grey Gardens is a documentary that follows a mother and daughter who are both adults in their middle and later years who have come from money and kind of fallen into a reclusive living in this large estate called Grey Gardens, but they live among vermin and many cats, but they still perform this version of elegance. And I'm really drawn to especially the daughter, little Edie, and how she is performing for the camera for these two documentarians. And she, I think, is seductive in a way and like kind of prancing sometimes in some scenes into the shot. So I've been seduced by her, and I've thought about whether to pity her or to celebrate her, or how does she see herself? How do I see her? And is the way that I see her because of social conditioning where I am? Anyway, it's a lot about shame and disappointment and pleasure and all the things.
Okay, cool.
Grey Gardens. The original. There's a remake.
Oh.
I've never seen it. Don't bother.
Okay.
Claire Denis' Bon Travail. I'm going to butcher a synopsis of it, but it's primarily about a legionnaire and his superior and the tense relationship between them. But there's also just beautiful shots of athletic bodies training in a very expansive desert-like landscape. And I recently rewatched John Cassavetes' A Woman Under the Influence, and Gina Rowlands plays a mother who is slowly coming undone, perhaps because of the conditions put upon her as a stay-at-home mom, or because of the problematics of her marriage, or maybe it's an undiagnosed disorder. It's a tragic film, but Gina Rowlands is excellent as this protagonist of a woman who I think is not allowed to be the full self that she is. She's very constrained by the conditions of her life, and she's trying really hard to fit those constraints, but it breaks her.
Well, this feels great to me.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like I just did a workout of like explaining myself.
Awesome.
It felt really good.
You can find more of Johanna's work, including the protagonist films, at her website, jojowinters.com. That's JOJO Winters.com. I'm Alex Chambers, and this is Nice Work.
This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake.
And I'm Kate Young.
Joining us today are Josh Brewer and Derek Navardauskas. They are here to talk about Cicada Cinema. Cicada Cinema is Bloomington's premier pop-up movie theater, and they screen a wild variety of movies in locations all across town. Josh, Derek, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So before we get started, I'm going to ask Kate a question. Kate, have you ever been to a Cicada Cinema screening?
I have not. So given that, I would love to hear your elevator pitch. What is Cicada Cinema?
Sure. So Cicada is a volunteer-run, nonprofit, community pop-up movie theater organization. So we screen movies around Bloomington at different locations. So we don't have a physical location, but we partner with local businesses, galleries, restaurants, the parks department, anywhere really we can pop up a screen. And our mission is to bring films to Bloomington that are underrepresented or underscreened. So we keep it a very wide net on what type of films we bring to town, but things that otherwise people couldn't see in Bloomington together.
Yeah. My partner told me about a show that I missed, which included like a silent film, like an animated film, with a live performance and an experimental composer. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, what I missed?
Yeah. So earlier this fall, we actually brought a musician, Claire Rousey, to Bloomington, and she performed a live score to a Slovak animation from 1980 called The Bloody Lady. So we had heard about this film, which is really underseen, rarely seen. Probably people haven't even heard of it. And we heard that she had made a live score to it. So over a number of months, we worked on bringing her here to Bloomington. And with some support from the Bloomington Arts Commission, a project grant, we were able to bring her, and she played her live score to the animation. And it was a just super wonderful evening. And the Technicolor Band opened up for the show. So we kind of made it a whole evening. It was at the Buskirk Chumley.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm really, really sad to have missed it.
Yeah, same. I feel like I've messed up here. All right. So kind of tell me, how did this all get started? Where did the idea come from, and how did you get the ball rolling on this project?
So Cicada started in 2016. So we're coming up on 9 years of bringing films to town. And we started initially at a DIY warehouse space, but then pretty quickly moved to doing pop-ups in town with having a PA, a projector, screens. We focused initially on bringing new films to town that otherwise weren't coming here. And then kind of after the pandemic, Derek came on board as a volunteer and a few other people. And we kind of opened our programming up to include new titles, repertory titles, and certain series that we go back to at different locations.
What's an example of of one of the series that you might go back to?
Our longest running series is called Cicada Underground, and that's usually the third Thursday of the month at the Orbit Room at 7 p.m. And that's where we show B movies. We show a lot of like kind of sleazy horror movies or action movies.
Yeah. You guys do a lot of genres. And so just a few recent screenings to give folks like a taste. Savage Beach is a genre movie about sexy secret agents transporting a life-saving vaccine. You've screened a documentary about the seminal indie rock band Pavement, and you do a lot of the festivals like we have already talked about. It's wonderfully eclectic, and I'm super curious how you land on the titles as you put all this stuff together.
We really just watch a lot of movies.
Wow.
Yeah, you just have to watch tons of movies, and everyone that's involved with the organization is like a true cinephile.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take in so much stuff, what sticks out to you to program to the community, you know, you find stuff and sometimes you can make it work. A lot of times we'll find a movie we want to see and we'll try to track down the rights and we can't make it happen. So that's also another factor that leads us to choosing films. Is it available? We also get solicited new releases and restorations.
Oh, that's great.
So we have kind of a constant stream of like new or resurfaced movies being sent our way for us to check out. We'll get screeners for them and take them in and watch them, discuss it amongst ourselves and decide if we want to show it.
Yeah, I really love the whole model of not having a theater. And it just sort of removes all of that extra overhead and the maintenance of a space and wondering if you can fill it and, you know, just all of those problems that would come with it when you're trying to start like an independent art house in town. And so I think it's a really interesting model, and also just the way that you're inhabiting all these spaces around town and kind of bringing it to different audiences in that way.
Really, initially, there was a novel aspect to popping up in different places, but since we returned to some consistent places, I think people really have our audiences really have gravitated more towards the series. So you'll see the same people coming to a certain series at a certain location and looking forward to that and kind of building a community. Like Derek said, our underground series at the Orbit Room, you know, you'll see the same people and they end up seeing each other, and it kind of creates that movie-going community space. That's really, it's wonderful to see.
So I do love that model as well, but I've seen it enough times to know that it's not easy. So can you kind of talk through the logistics of setting up a show in all these different places and having to think about all the different resources you have to use and you have to bring to each of those spaces?
I would describe it a little bit like a band setting up. I mean, like a drummer has a bunch of equipment. You have, amps are kind of like our PA. So it feels a little bit more like a band that we're setting up in different places, which is kind of how I always envisioned it a little bit. But rather than making the music, we're curating the films for people to see. So it kind of feels like that, like we're hauling equipment in our cars and stuff like that.
I'm looking at your shirts and I really love the logo. It's very nice. And I was wondering if you could say anything about the name.
Frankly, we like the idea of cicadas and it looked nice with the word cinema.
Yeah.
And we thought it could have a good logo. And a friend of ours, an artist, David Woodruff, designed our initial design, and we had a new logo kind of mock-up a couple years ago. Really, it was more just about the pleasant cicada image and the name kind of worked together.
So you guys do have a pretty busy calendar coming up. Can you kind of give us a preview of what folks are going to be able to catch in the next few months?
We have a couple different series. One of our longest running series is our Cicada Art House, which is where we bring new international and art house titles to Bloomington that otherwise aren't coming. And on October 18th, we're going to be bringing a film called My First Film. That's a wonderful film about a filmmaker revisiting her earlier film that she thinks was awful. But it also then becomes a reflection on her own life and her own experiences, what she wanted to tell.
Wow, that does sound good.
Yeah.
Then later on in October, we get into our spooky season. So we have a pair of haunted house movies, which are hilariously both titled House. We have the 80s USA horror movie called House. Then we have Frankenhooker. That's the following Thursday, the 23rd. That's part of our Underground series. After that is $5 Fight Club, which is always our secret martial arts screening where you don't exactly know what you're going to get unless you're signed up to our newsletter.
That's a great model. I didn't realize that's how that worked.
And then the second part of the House series is Houseu. That's the Japanese movie from Toho, who also produced like the Godzilla movies. It's like a very seminal classic Japanese horror film. And then I think our last spooky film for October is the new queer horror movie Queens of the Dead, which is has a bunch of drag queens in it, drag queens and zombies. And we're showing that at the back door, which we have a series called New Queer Cinema where we highlight new queer releases.
Where can people find out more and see your schedule and get tickets?
If you want to check out our upcoming screenings, you can check out cicadacinema.com. It's got listings for all of our upcoming movies, and you can purchase tickets for all of them. It's also where you can sign up for our newsletter, which is the best way to find out about our upcoming screenings.
Josh, Derek, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you at the movies.
Yeah, see you at the
We'll
movies.
see you there.
That was Josh Brewer and Derek Navardauskas with Cicada Cinema.
This is Nice Work.
Okay, you guys, what do you get when you combine a clothing resale shop with a symphony orchestra?
I don't know, Alex. What do you get?
A lot of black slacks?
Yeah, well, that. You also get the Bloomington Symphony's next concert. It's Sunday, October 19th, and the place they're collaborating with is more than a clothing resale shop. My Sister's Closet does sell gently used clothing, but their real goal is to help people get a leg up.
We work to help move women out of poverty and at-risk circumstances through training and assistance with obtaining a new job.
That's Marcy Hibbard. She's the development director at My Sister's Closet. They've got a new property, and they're in the middle of a capital campaign to help with their move. Raising money for the move is Marcy's focus. Collaborating with a symphony? Less so. But one day, the music director of the Bloomington Symphony was sitting in his office.
We share offices with a few other organizations, and one of the ladies who worked for the law firm in the same building just walked by, and I happened to be in the office, and then she gave me she was like, oh, I have extra tickets to the My Sister's Closet's gala event.
Ryo Hasegawa is gregarious and always looking for community partnerships. He's also busy. He conducts multiple symphonies across the country. But
that day, I happened to be free. I happened to be in Bloomington. And I was like, okay, perfect. And the theme was like 1920s. And I had no idea. So I had to literally Google up like what kind of, attire the people were.
But he went, and it was fun. There was the 1920s theme. There was a photo booth. They also showed videos of the clients of My Sister's Closet talking about what they'd gone through.
These are the women who live in Bloomington and how My Sister's Closet helped them to get back into the society, to get the job, and to start the family. It was just one of the most profound experiences I've ever had.
When you're a music director and you have a profound experience, there's only one response. You program music.
Right at that time, we were also picking the pieces, music for this upcoming season.
But what music do you program to celebrate a community organization? I stopped by My Sister's Closet to ask the people there what they'd choose. I started with Marcy Hibbard.
I am going to have to probably say RESPECT. Find out what it means to me, because we respect every person that walks through our doors, regardless of what their situation is.
Aretha Franklin's Respect makes sense. But there were some other options, too.
Try a Little Help for My Friend.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Blondie's Heart of Glass.
Help.
9 to 5 by Dolly Parton.
Imagine by John Lennon.
So I checked with Ryo. Turns out they're not playing any of them. The Bloomington Symphony is playing symphony music. They're featuring
2 female composers, Amy Beach and then Gaelic Symphony and Gabriela Ortiz Anthropolis.
Amy Beach's Gaelic Symphony pays tribute to what she calls the simple, rugged, and unpretentious beauty of Irish folk songs. Gabriela Ortiz's Anthropolis is a symphonic reflection of Mexico City. They'll also be featuring the winner of their youth concerto competition, Solar Manley, on Mendelssohn's First Piano Concerto. The Bloomington Symphony's collaboration with My Sister's Closet culminates with their concert at the Buskirk Chumley Theater at 5 p.m. on Sunday, October 19th. Right before that, at 4, they'll be sharing stories from My Sister's Closet. You can find more information at bloomingtonsymphony.com. This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers.
So there's a new ice cream shop in Bloomington with some pretty unique flavors. Have you guys heard about this? It's called Alle's.
It's on the west side, is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty tucked away, though. It's easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. Tyler did manage to find his way there, though.
The owner of Alle's Ice Cream is Alejandrina Marquez. Ale. When I walked in, she gave me a big, warm smile. It made me feel special. Very good. Are you Ale?
Yes.
Hi. I played it cool later when I realized everyone gets that smile. I looked at the ice cream menu. It's horchata, queso fresco, sweet corn. There was also chocolate and pecan and Cookie Monster, like the usual suspects. But I wanted to try a flavor I'd never had before.
This is some Mexican flavors. All ice cream is made up with a cream base, and they add the real fruit, like mango, or they use corn, so it's made up with the real corn. We do not just have ice cream. We have popsicles. We have snacks. This is like a real Mexican ice cream shop. It's called in Mexico Paleteria. And Paleteria has ice cream and snacks.
She said the idea came to her after a trip home to Pueblo, Mexico.
And I try all these flavors that come back in my memories when I grew up. And I'm like, hey, I need to bring it to our town. A lot of people love Mexican food, so they're going to love Mexican ice cream. I never see anybody bring a Mexican ice cream. So the popsicles are called paletas. Perfect.
This isn't Allie's first gig. She works at Cook Medical and comes here in the afternoons. It really feels like this is her happy place, and that feeling's infectious. So I went in planning to try the horchata ice cream that everyone had told me about, but I actually never got around to it because Ale told me about the queso fresco ice cream that everyone seems to really love these days, and I think it's because it has these pockets of salty, crumbly cheese in it.
The cheese, Mexican crumbled cheese. We sell both, but the most popular is the blackberry. Some people like the fruit, some people don't, so that's what we had it without and with.
Which one are you going to set me up with?
Well, because I love the blackberry, I'm going to let you try this blackberry. Okay, ready? So the fruit and the salty, it has chunks of the queso, but also has the seed of the blackberry. So it's a good combination. It's one of my favorites, called zarzamora in Spanish.
Zarzamora.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Okay, I will let you try the crazy one, the corn. Elote is a sweet corn.
Wait. Can you get an elote and try it with me? I want to hear you tell me about it.
Okay, I will try it with you. It's creamy, rich, and it's like frozen corn. What do you think?
Popcorn, corn right off the cob, it kind of tastes like.
Yeah, it's very delicious.
It's the most Indiana ice cream I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see? It's Indiana ice cream. You're right.
So I could tell Allie really gets a kick out of surprising customers. But she brought something else up several times. And I think what really gets her excited is when customers tell her there's something in these flavors that remind them of home.
It makes me so happy when I see people trying a new flavor. When I see the joy of their face when kind of remind their own fruit, another name in their country. And it's I kind of bring everybody together, made me so excited. But thank you so much. Adios. Adios.
This episode was produced and edited by Alex Chambers. We get production help from Danny William, Leo Paz, Holly Wilkerson, Jillian Blackburn, and Jonah Ballard. Our theme music was composed and performed by Alan Davis. The executive producer is Eric Bolstridge.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Nice work, Alex.